This podcast contains advertisements from partners and sponsors.
Calmness, refreshing, tranquility, premium perfume scents for your home. Shop now at TikTok Shop Rainfresh SG.
Fried pow and curry puffs, bread pudding, sushi bakes, and more. Good food, cozy moments. Order now.
Hey everyone, before we begin today's story, I would just like to say a huge thank you for all your support. If you want to keep the fire burning, do consider to buy us a cup of coffee on our Ko-Fi page. Every bit of your support goes into the production, sourcing of new stories, and keeping the darkness alive. You can find the link in the show notes or also our profile. Additionally, follow us on our TikTok page where we will go live to share more stories over there. And for now, enjoy this episode.
Are you afraid of ghosts?
Dolls. They are adorable and lovable objects, loved by many young children and girls, often used as playmates or companions to a child's imagination. Most children spend time talking to dolls, and adults, we see them as normal. However, what if what we thought was an imagination was actually real? What if there was an actual conversation between the child and the doll? Hi there, my name is Roy, and welcome to another episode of Are You Afraid of Ghosts, where we tell stories on the chilling, the unexplained, and the uninvited. In this month's theme, we're going with horrors of objects. And in this episode, I will be sharing with you a story shared by Akid, a listener, where he recounts his experience with his sister's rag doll, which was given as a gift by him after he obtained it from his school's charity event. It looked like a normal looking doll, rounded puffy eyes, adorable smile, and a tiny outfit, and is made out of cloth and fabric. His sister, Alina, would spend all day speaking and playing with a doll, like any other girls would. After all, his younger sister is fond of dolls. She has plenty of them in the room. However, there was something strange about this doll. Somehow, Alina could not live without it, not for a minute, nor a second. It was as if she were bound to it, and he only found out when something strange started to happen. This incident happened around 8 years ago, when Akid was 14 and Alina was 5. Akid was in school, where they had a donation drive. He and his classmates had just come back from collecting donation items from public houses around the school. As they were sorting the items into categories, such as books, clothes, and soft toys, Akid found a rag doll. According to him, the rag doll was worn out. It was dirty with loose strings. It definitely could not go into the items for donation. So Akid chucked it aside for disposal while he continued sorting out the remaining items. After a couple of hours, when everything was done, Akid's classmates were tasked with packing the donation items to be given to the charity organization. Akid, however, was tasked with disposing of the items that could not be donated. That was when he came across the doll again. At that moment, a thought crossed his mind. His sister, Alina. She would probably love the doll. However, looking at the condition of the doll, it wouldn't be feasible for him to give it to her. But Akid mentioned that at that very point in time, there was a very sudden, strong pull that he felt from the doll, as if something was compelling him to take the doll home, and hence, without hesitation, Akid picked up the doll and put it in his left pocket to take it home. That evening, after dinner, Akid surprised Alina with the doll. The doll had been cleaned earlier and with the loose strings trimmed off and the dirt wiped away as much as possible. Initially, Akid had thought that perhaps Alina wouldn't be keen on it as it had worn out. But the very moment he held it out in his hands in front of Alina, his sister got excited. She took it from his hands and hugged it so tightly without even giving the doll a proper look beforehand. Akid felt relieved and touched. It was as if his sister had truly appreciated his gift with so much gratitude, even though it was just another doll. Or so it was. That evening, Akid recalled that he had a very weird dream. In his dream, he was seated alone in the middle of a dark, cold room. He wasn't sure where he was, but it looked like his sister's room, except that it was empty. At the corner of the room, Akid said that he saw the silhouette of a child standing, hidden in the shadows. It was wearing a robe, like hospital clothes, was barefoot, and had long hair reaching the child's waist, which made Akid assume that the child was a girl. She was standing, facing straight towards Akid, and she then giggled softly and said, "Thank you for bringing me home." The following morning, Akid woke up feeling very exhausted, as if he had run a race the night before. But something much stranger started to happen that morning. For the first time ever, Alina was throwing tantrums because she didn't want to go to school. She was screaming, kicking, and pushing her parents when they tried to shower her and put on her school clothes. Akid said that his sister had never done so before. She loved going to school and would always be the first to wake up before her own parents. Somehow, strangely, that morning, she resisted. The one phrase that Alina kept shouting was, "I want to play with Fiona!" At first, Akid and his parents were confused about who Fiona was, until at one moment, Alina grabbed her rag doll, hugged it tight, and said, "Fiona was scared if I leave her alone. She didn't want me to go to school." Stressed by all the early morning commotion, Akid's parents allowed Alina to bring her rag doll to school, which was the only way to make her agree to go. And Alina did. Right before Akid was about to leave home, Alina looked at Akid and said, "Abang, Fiona said she would like to thank you for taking her home." At that moment, Akid found that statement weird and strange. But because he was feeling exhausted, it didn't cross his mind that something was not right. That evening itself, Akid came back home after his CCA extremely exhausted. All he was thinking of was a good sleep. So when he passed by Alina's room, Akid caught a glimpse of his sister sitting on the bed, and by her side was the rag doll, or perhaps Fiona. Akid recalled saying that his sister was playing and laughing quite happily, but strangely, on her own. She then spoke to the rag doll as if she was speaking to a real person. Everyone knew that girls loved to play with dolls, but it was still a little too unusual for him to see Alina so engrossed with the rag doll, more than any other dolls that she ever had. Once again, Akid was too exhausted to think of anything but sleep. That evening, Akid said that he dreamed the same exact dream. The dark cold room, the stillness, and the scent. There, at the corner of the room, was the same girl standing in the dark, but with her features hidden by the shadows. Strangely, according to Akid, this time, there, at the corner, he saw another girl, which looked like Alina. The next morning, the same issue happened again with Alina. She was throwing tantrums because she didn't want to go to school. This time, her reason was, Fiona hates school. She hates my classmates. She wants them dead. Akid's dad got so angry that he scolded Alina for saying those words, and Alina burst into tears while still hugging the ragdoll. Then, Alina blurted out something no one had expected to hear. Fiona says you're a bad father. She wants to kill you. Both Akid's parents and Akid himself were shocked by those words. Those weren't Alina's words. Alina was a kind, gentle, and loving girl. The question was, what happened? Because time wasn't on his parents' side, they had no choice but to call Akid's grandma, who happened to be living nearby, to drop by and look after Alina because she wouldn't budge and go to school. Akid, who was still exhausted even after sleeping through the entire evening after coming home from school the day before, was trying to understand what had just happened. Thankfully, that noon, Akid had no CCA or after-school activities, which meant he could go home earlier. However, something terrifying was happening when he reached home. Upon reaching his house, he could hear wailing coming from inside the house, which sounded like his grandma's. Why would grandma be wailing and shouting if nothing serious had happened? So Akid rushed to unlock the front door, and the moment he stepped in, he was met with a shocking sight. There, standing right against the wall of the living room, was Alina. Her head was bloodied, with blood dripping down her cheeks. Her upper t-shirt was already soaked with blood and saliva that drooled from her mouth. The wall was also splattered with blood, as if she had banged her head so hard against the surface, and in her right hand was Fiona, the ragdoll, held very tightly. Then, Akid's suspicion came true. Alina smacked her head against the wall, not once, not twice, but repeatedly without flinching, as if it didn't hurt her at all. So his grandma was already freaked out and was wailing, not knowing what to do. She tried to stop Alina, but her frail hands were too weak to pull her away. So Akid rushed to Alina and pulled her away from the wall. But somehow, according to Akid, Alina was unusually strong. Alina kept smacking her head against the wall, and the only way to stop her was to stand between Alina and the wall. But having done so, Alina kept moving her head forward, and this time hitting Akid's torso instead. Akid described that moment as the most frightening experience he had ever had. He saw how Alina, his young, sweet sister, turned devilish and demonic. Alina kept pushing her head hard against Akid's torso that he cried in pain. His grandma then rushed to call Akid's parents using the phone house, and Akid could hear his grandma screaming to them over the phone.
Alina is possessed. Your daughter Alina is possessed. There is a demon hiding in her. She needs help now.
At that moment, though in pain, Akid's mind was racing. All the dots from the past 2 days connected in his mind. The ragdoll, which is Fiona, the girl in the dream, the other girl in the dream who looked like Alina, and Alina's strange behavior. Then Akid realized that it could be the ragdoll all along. Akid looked down at his sister and said, Alina, listen. Do not let Fiona control you. Alina, please, listen to me. Just then, Alina stopped moving. Her head slowly moved up until her eyes made contact with Akid's. Then, a creepy, breathy voice, she said,
Alina is not here.
Akid froze for a second. He didn't know how to react. Tears gathered in his eyes. Did I really lose my sister? Is she really gone? That instant, Akid said that he definitely need to know what to do. He had to do something. So the only way that he did was he gathered his strength, held his sister's shoulders, and said a loud prayer straight into her face. Alina screamed at the top of her lungs. At first, Alina screamed not out of fear, but in resistance to the prayers. But Akid retaliated by saying the prayers even louder. And then soon, Alina's scream changed. It's no longer resistance, but rather it's fear. Akid continued to say the prayers, whatever he knew and whatever he could remember. He kept going non-stop until, after a few minutes of ordeal, Alina fainted in his arms, and the ragdoll was finally released from her hand. For that very second, Akid and his grandma, who was crying profusely, could finally breathe. That night, according to Akid, everything happened so quickly. His parents got home immediately from work. His aunts, uncles, and cousins were there because his grandma had panicked and called everyone, including an ustaz or priest, along with a few other individuals who claims to be his practitioners. Basically, the whole house was crowded because of the earlier commotion. His parents insisted on not sending Alina to the hospital, even though her head was badly bruised, because they were afraid that the authorities might regard it as child abuse. So all they could do was bandage Alina's head and lay her down on her bed. The ragdoll, Fiona, was now in the ustaz's hands. When the ustaz first stepped into the house, he could already sense a strong demonic presence. According to Akid, the ustaz was quick to identify that the demonic entity came from the ragdoll. Even before Akid told him the story of how he had found the doll and why he suspected it. The ustad then went on to explain that the doll was no ordinary doll. It traced back to an abusive family who had brutally tortured a little girl until she died. The doll was believed to have belonged to that girl when she was alive, and somehow her spirit remained attached to it. Through the years, the doll was passed from one person to another, and to all who had touched or seen the doll, bad omens followed. Akid was battered by then. He was still in pain from Alina's repeated blows, and he hadn't even had a proper meal yet. He couldn't digest everything that was happening, but all he wanted was for it to end. That evening, the ustaz and the other family members together recited prayers, and the rag doll was then taken away by the ustaz, who stated that he would cleanse the doll and burn it so that no one would ever be harmed by it again. 2 days had passed, and everything eventually returned to normal. Alina had woken up from her deep sleep and couldn't recall much of what had happened. According to Akid, thankfully, she did not ask for Fiona, her rag doll, at all. It seemed as if she had completely forgotten about it. Now that 8 years have passed, Akid's relationship with Alina has grown into that of a much more protective brother. He makes sure to check on Alina at all times. And while Alina still loves dolls, and Akid would go the extra mile to get his lovely little sister one, he wouldn't dare to pick up any random dolls he found. He would rather buy them, even if they cost a lot. And that is the end of Akid's story about the rag doll. If you love this episode, please comment below what are your thoughts, and if you ever had stories regarding haunted dolls. I once remember there was a big hype about Teletubbies, if you remember. But have you ever had one yourself? Because I do. And that's the story for next time. Once again, please don't forget to comment, like, and share this video so we can continue to share the fear of ghosts to others too. But for now, are you still sure that you are not afraid of ghosts?
Are you afraid of ghosts?